Evening.
Right. Evening. Got fidget devices and a protein shake. I'm ready to go. How about you?
Yep. Fiddle thing that won't make too much noise acquired. Um, Now I just need to work out how to stop the chair creaking.
Oh, I haven't heard it yet. I think it will probably be all right.
I think the recording program picks it up even if Discord filters it out.
Ah, right. Because yeah, there's noise suppression on these calls, isn't there? That's right.
Yeah,
Hmm. We'll get professional set up one day, but I'm gonna take it slow.
yeah,
Money to go to other things.
yeah. So, yeah, we started. I sort of dived into the conversation. And you made the comment that we should record. So, yeah.
Yeah, we'll get to the point where we can just cold open and go straight into it, but not quite there yet. That's all
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
I've been thinking about this, like, some mistakes I made earlier on in the show and things that I was like, oh, I regret saying that, or wish I could change that. Doesn't matter. No one's listening.
Well, last time I
And
checked,
even,
which was last week, there were 8 people listening.
ah, uh, hello, 8 people. You haven't left a comment, so as far as I'm concerned, you're not real yet. I could just be like looking at the thumbnail for all modern technology tells us the way the systems inflate numbers. Nah, even if we do end up making this a successful thing way down the line or whatever, these early things are not going to get looked at anyway, so it doesn't matter.
Let me turn that silent.
Oh,
Good.
all right, good day. Finally got all my shit sorted, kids to bed and all that.
Yeah.
Take a breath.
Uh, I was loaned a book series. Brandon Sanderson, I think is the pronunciation of the author's name, Mistborn, by a colleague at work. And
Yeah.
my response when she loaned me this series was, "This is a mistake. Thank you."
Yeah, you said your sleep wasn't doing so well though.
Yeah, this was before that, but not helped by it. Um,
Yeah, I can imagine.
yeah, because it's like my son was with my parents yesterday, and so it was like most of that day was spent reading and good book. No Deus Ex Machinas, but a sort of oh, I totally didn't see that coming, but it totally makes sense.
That's good. It's
Like
good when a book series hooks you like that. There's so many other options of entertainment, and it's nice when you actually find something old school like that that's engaging enough to pull you away from everything else.
oh yeah, yeah,
It's like raising the bar.
yeah. And like some there were some things I saw coming and a lot of things I really didn't. Like, oh, that character cares more about achieving his goal than his own life by a substantial margin. He's gonna die. Um, and another one that I thought, oh, he's a growth character for the main character who will probably die stunned and shocked by the realities of the world. Oh, I didn't see that coming when something different happened. Or was it character is captured, another character is thrown into the cell next door um, to after being beaten soundly, and it's like, oh no, how'd they catch you? But it was the only way I knew they could get me to. It was the only way I knew I could find you again to help you escape. What? Q escape because it was planned out, and
Yeah.
but yeah, a lot of things that it's good to see something where you don't see it coming and it uses the cliches knowingly.
So it sets you up with it.
Yeah, but also like cliches are there for a reason because yes, someone who's lived on the streets their whole life in very harsh conditions who gets introduced to high society will be rather taken by it at first and then see the dark side and be rather less taken by it. And
Mm.
yeah,
Well, they're recognizing patterns in humans. The tropes retold over and over again because there's something to them.
Yeah.
There's a lot of problems with modern storytelling, though. Like the tropes thing, yeah, it can be a bit lazy writing. You can see what's coming half the time.
Hmm.
I
Oh,
hate
yeah.
the constant like bringing back to life of characters. Like you're not actually allowed to kill anyone. I hate that so much.
Yeah.
Like good TV shows I've been watching, and then a character just comes back, and it's like, and I'm done. I'm not. It's three characters that have died, and oh wait, they're not died. They're alive. They're coming back next season. I'm good.
Yeah, that happened a little bit in this book, in the sense of you think this character's dead, and oh, actually, it turns out they're not. But there was also like, no, no, he dead, he very dead, and he was a very, very important character, and yeah, he very dead.
I think there's sort of a yearning for that. I got a feeling that's a lot of the reason why Game of Thrones actually did so well was the
Oh,
willingness to kill characters that people loved.
hmm.
There's something about that, stories are representations of the real world, and in real world, people just die, and it's not fair. And Game of Thrones was very much that. It's just like, this is a great moment, and wouldn't it be so nice? Oh, everyone's dead. Red weddings, you know. And yeah,
Oh,
I think everyone was gripped by that.
there are a couple of rounds of that sort of thing in this book where uh, things are going well, it's working. Oh, massive setback, and there was one scene where what was it? How do I describe it in the vague terms without giving it away to anyone who wants to read the story? But big plan, set up, lots of setup, and then big knockback, and like, oh god, how can we recover from this? Our plans have been blown to smithereens, and then sort of take a step back, and the charismatic, optimistic ones like, actually, we've kind of achieved our original goal here, but at far greater cost than we wanted to. We can still do this. And it's like, yeah, sort of. And the story goes on from there, and the it's interesting to go off on a different tangent, and do interrupt if I start getting too rambly, but if you think about the ways that stories have been couched in different times in different media, um, I recall reading that in older stories, and I'm talking 500,000 years ago type stories, people didn't want to read about ordinary people. It's like they had everyday life every day, and they knew that it was tough and that stuff happened, but in a sense, they wanted to read about people who were greater than themselves to pull themselves up. And these days, that side is so massively overdone with the superhero genre, which in one sense is gods pretending to be people, or people playing at gods or whatever. But there's a gap for relatable characters where you can see yourself in their shoes. They are not the chosen one because they've got a scar on their forehead that picks them out as the one. And the evil is not just the evilest that ever eviled. It's like Tolkien started that, but he did it in an intelligent way. It was,
And intentionally.
yeah, yeah, he knew exactly what he was doing. He'd never described Sauron. Like there's one picture I think which was a, as close as he came to describing what Sauron actually was, and it's like this dark figure in the clouds. hidden but massive and distant. And it's like, okay, the evil is off, and he deliberately wrote it as the characters could not defeat this evil. And so he had an element of Deus Ex Machina included in there deliberately as from his Christian perspective, like the intervening of God, because no mortal creature could resist the pull of the One Ring. Frodo, um, at the final point, can't resist it anymore, and then the the intervening of God lining up the fates brings in Gollum to snatch the ring away from him and fall into the lava with it. And it's like, you got as far as you could, and you did an astonishing job in that, but you could never get all the way. And so here is that final helping hand from divine intervention put in there deliberately. And it's interesting to see the way these narrative styles play with the cultural currents.
Hmm. It's both a reflection and a shaping.
Definitely.
There is a large degree to which we're far too influenced by the stories of that time. There's something that happened around that time that separated the fictional realm from Christian philosophy. There's many stories right before Tolkien came along and made that shift
Mm.
were were set in a Christian manner, and there was some kind of divorce there that we've seemed to have followed along continually to where we are now with the superhero type elements. And it's become hollow.
Mm.
Tolkien managed to do it and do it very well because he was informed by those other things and made the conscious choice to set it up in such a way that was devoid of the Christian mythology. But he still took some of the archetypes from it. Whereas now we've trundled off down this path that has no connection to the roots of it all. And it's become, I don't know, there's something fragile about it. Everything's falling apart horribly.
But at the same
Like,
time,
like Disney doesn't make massive successes anymore.
oh yeah, yeah.
Like their last few movies have been complete failures. And I only learnt recently that the big animated Disney films back in the day, ones that put them on the map, they were an up and coming response. There was another company making films at the time of a similar nature, but it was um, cynical and snide in the way that modern media is.
Mm.
And it was picking fun of the stories and making fun of the tropes and doing it all in the sort of cynical way that we've come to expect from, well, Hollywood at this point, but entertainment in general. And Disney came up and decided, no, we want to do the stories justice. And that's why they become one of the biggest corporations on the planet from scrappy upstart, because they went back and touched on those old stories, but did it in a way that was respectful compared to the prevailing media that wasn't.
Mm.
And oh, what a corruption they've become.
It's part of the great cycle. Well, the great cycle. It's part of a great cycle of
Mm,
the the renewal when things are new, to use that term not in its normal context, but let's run with it. When yeah, culture is in a state that could be called new and fresh and vibrant and fertile is the word that seems to come to mind, then you run with that. But it's only when that metaphor works well. It's only when that existing cultural state has decayed and rotted that it can become the compost for the next round of fertile growth. It
Mm,
becomes the soil from which the next fertile growth springs. And the next growth will, by definition, almost be of a different form. And you've got the sort of fringes, the rejected, the not us, the not same groups or people who, by definition, are doing things differently. And someone on those fringes will come up with something that clicks. And
we should put a note right in there that the people on the fringes are the people on the fringes in terms of their ideas,
mm,
not in terms of their group characteristics.
what would that
In the
mean?
creative process, it doesn't matter what gender or race or sex you are and how included or excluded from the
Ah,
society you are.
yeah.
It matters about your creative ideas.
Mm,
And the people that are pushed to the outside that will create the new next time isn't some oppressed class. It's the ideas that are currently unacceptable. I just wanted to jump that in
mm,
there because I think in this day and age, when people hear the phrase of those on the borders, they think immediately of identity groups,
yeah.
as we've been so trained.
A certain skin color.
Yeah, or sexual proclivity.
Yeah.
And that's not the case at all.
Yeah. Oh,
An idea has no boundaries in groups.
there's
I
a.
think there's something else about the the compost metaphor is great. I think the desire or the demand for something new both creates the fertile compost crap out of what was and creates the new. Like it's the same driving
Mm,
force. The demand for something new when there's not creative action happening creates these, you know, cynical ripping apart deconstruction pieces. Mm.
and there's cycles within cycles of it as well because there's a certain. Oh, now this isn't a completed idea, but as a society is growing, the available real estate or space to house all these ideas and these different perspectives on the world is growing, and you'll still have a turnover of ideas within that space. Old ideas are rejected, new ideas are tried out, and the ones that work then succeed. But then the oh, I wonder if the same metaphor of growing until senescence, I guess you could say, or old age, and then decline would apply to that real estate as a whole as well. So the
Mm.
the culture becomes too stable, things get ossified and fixed, and you get every ruling bureaucrat has white hair and should be in a rest home.
Mm.
And then
Yeah.
through, let's say, mismanagement of the relationship to the environment around it, which I'm not specifically saying like cutting too many trees down. I'm saying that stuff's not done in a way that will keep working for a long time, which is very, very
If
broad.
if by some miracle you happen to have a set of circumstances or ideas that sprout up at the same time and all mesh together to make a stable, functional system that doesn't need to be replaced with something new right now, it's not going to last forever.
Mm.
Maybe you get 20 years out of it, and that'd be awesome. But then times change, environment changes, things have to change.
And aspects
You
of that,
can't,
some of the founding ideas might last 100 or 200 years. but they
Mm.
all need renewal and rethinking. And
A principle with flexibility can last a long time, but not a set of rules.
yeah, yeah, and I see a lot of that stuff happening these days with biblical themes, like Peterson doing a lot of that, and he's not the only one, but delving back into other sources, other religious sources, and so on, trying to find new ways of expressing the meaning within. It's like the old gold goes rotten. Like people go out, fight the metaphorical dragon, find some gold to bring back to the community, but it rots over time, and you need to go out and fight the same dragon and find the gold that's there now, that's right for the present, and then bring it back, and that all the old gold
Well,
gets spent and used up. Yeah.
it's the underworld. The father who is wise grows old, decrepit, and dies. And the young hero has to go to hell and find him and bring back the parts of him that are useful because they still needed some of it.
Hmm. But it won't be in the same
And
shape as the old father.
no, he integrates it with himself.
Hmm.
Like he takes parts of the old father and makes it into him, and then he's stronger. Or he gives parts of himself to the old father, and the old father comes back healed and stronger, something like that.
Hmm.
There's sort of a renaissance going on with the Christian thing, like a reformation.
Well, there was an interesting analysis of it that I saw. I'm not sure if I've talked about it before, but based on the cycle of history and past civilizations, um, we are not the first civilization to have an age of reason. Have I talked down this line before?
No. Yeah, we have.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, we're definitely not.
yeah. So as that fades out, you get a return to religion because the age of reason stopped giving new
Uh,
results.
do you think we've passed the age of reason?
I think we're in its twilight.
Mm.
The author I was reading put the start of this phase in the 70s with the emergence of the, uh,
Mm.
let's say, Wicca and similar. The idea that
Yeah,
non standard views could be a cool and edgy thing to do rather than just nuts.
I don't think age of reason starting in the 70s. I think that's very.
No, the end starting.
Oh, the end. Oh, yes, 100%. I was going to say if it was. Mm.
No, no. Age of
Um,
Reason, I'm not sure where to put the beginning, but that's a
yeah,
good few
definitely
hundred
not
years
the
back.
70s. Yeah, we're definitely in the end. And that's why those who do not believe in the traditional religions have constructed their own.
Oh, yes.
Because people don't want to know truth. They don't they don't want to figure out truth. The age of reason can only continue to exist when people are willing to put in the work to come to first principles on an idea. Is that how you say it? To reason their way through problems and to figure out what they know or what is true. And as soon as people don't want to think about and figure out what is true for themselves, they want someone else to tell them, religion's going to come back. You can't have both.
I don't think the religion aspect is about wanting to figure out something for yourself or not figure it out for yourself.
I mean the appeal to an external authority about what is true. People don't want to figure it out for themselves. They don't want to reason through the evidence or the science or whatever. They want to ask the authority, hey, what's true?
Hmm.
And believe it. And I can't see how an age of reason can coexist with the average person doing that. It seems, antithetical.
That's not what I see the Age of Reason as. For me, it's the idea that here are a set of questions or a line of inquiry, and human reason is the tool that will give us the answers to that. And in our civilization, it's all been about mastery of the physical world, and
Okay, but by who?
not by every person, but
Okay, but how many people are required? Because I can tell you at every single point in human history, there's been a subgroup of humanity who's been using their reason to go after questions or inquiry,
yes, certainly there's an intelligentsia that forms an academia, and
or or an underground class. But my point is,
hmm,
what makes it an age of reason?
the
Is it
idea
what,
that
like
human reason is
50%?
paramount.
So the majority of people doing it?
I think the majority of people are following it rather than, say, human reason being one tool in an everyday toolkit that includes a more living perception of the world. Like, if you look back on the. Now, this isn't my research I'm referring to, but if you look back on the view of how to describe it, reality, life, other beings held by Christians in the 1500s. I think St. Francis of Assisi was mentioned in this article as an example of this. He, I think it was, preached to the birds, which in and of itself includes a whole bunch of assumptions about the nature of the birds and the idea that you would greet the sun as it rises as a sentient part of God's creation rather than the world being made of dead matter and God being relegated in various ways to, what was it, like the watchmaker God who just set it all running and then walked off essentially, or some form of philosophical uh, target or stand-in or goal, rather than a living being who you would talk to and ask for advice and who would give you guidance and reprimands and so on. And the idea that you are part of a community of beings in this world rather than the the favored child, or the only one in the room even. That's the biggest difference
I,
that
I
I.
still don't see how that connects to what an age and reason is
Well,
versus what isn't.
I'm trying to draw out from the article I read. Like, he talked about the age of reason of ancient Rome, where you had the presence of, or the status of the gods relegated in a similar way away from everyday society. It's like, sure, there were still people who were pious and religious, but at the same time, it didn't really matter as much. And the world was seen as in a dead matter type of way. But
So this
then,
age of materialism.
yeah, 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 that'd probably be a better phrase for it. Another one I've heard that might come across better is an age of or quantity versus quality. Like these days, everything is quantified. It's all in numbers. It's all in how many units of an identical thing. Whereas in an age of quality, it's like, ah, you made this thing. Let me examine it and see how what the workmanship's like. And
Hmm.
3D printers seem like a step in that direction, where rather than it being let me make 1,000 of the same thing, it's let me make one thing that's different to all the other things. And the valuing of that uniqueness as opposed to the uniformity. We're
Okay.
seeing that coming back. This is an
Given what
area
you've
I have not
described,
mastered.
no, given what you described, I can agree with what you've said. It just sort of dawns on me that the age of reason slogan is starting to feel a bit more like propaganda and a little bit less like what it actually is. Um, Sounds a little bit more like, the age of atheism or
Hmm.
something like that.
Well,
And the other half of
hmm.
that is the I think it's worth noting that the statement that reason should be the paramount or the primary way that human beings engage with reality is not inherently the best. Um,
I think the argument's made difficult by the idea that for many people there is no other way they are aware of to interact with the world.
Reason does not create;
Hmm.
it dissects. It is deconstructionist by nature. It analyzes, it organizes, and it cuts things into pieces to look at. That is not a spirit that creates new. And in people where it's even prominent, it becomes difficult to even engage in the spirit that creates new. For example, someone who's well versed in archetypes and the great histories in a philosophical, in a psychological manner, um, can have a really hard time actually creating a story because it becomes propagandistic far too easily. When you have dissected the ancient stories and extracted out the reason in them, trying to engage in a creative process and create something new becomes hollow and hard and fake most of the time in its production. I think Christianity's had many warnings about putting the spirit of reason at the highest pinnacle. I don't know the extent of that. And I myself have done this to myself. So it's not like I'm, you know, any better. But I would be silly to not be aware of that. It's something that troubles me. And your divination project, or whatever it is you call it, is a good way of breaking out of the box. And I think it's very good for you. And I highly encourage you to keep doing it because of this problem. Too reason, too analytical, too dead matter. You can't, it's hard to have a relationship with the unknown, with transcendent unity, which is the source of all creative ideas, when your primary state of being is being being of reason, dissect, analyze, process. And I wonder how that's going to play out in terms of the AI stuff as well.
Hmm. I'd just like to try and expand on what the alternative ways of processing the world are that work with reason as part of the complete toolkit. Because I think reason is a needed part of the toolkit, but it's like one of the senses. If you don't have hearing, you're going to be missing out on things. If hearing's all you've got, no touch, taste, sight, or anything, then you're going to get a very, very different view of the world. But if
It
you can,
needs to be balanced.
yeah. So what are the other aspects that we need to bring in to balance it? You've talked about creativity and intuition, I think.
Well, this is part of the problem is how exactly to pin down the weight, the yeah. How do you encapsulate the unknown unknowns
Hmm.
in the process that mediates with them? Visionary is a word that's in my mind, but that doesn't exactly describe much. And there's a part that's, you know, um, Mr. Reason Brain wants to analyze and dissect and encapsulate an idea of a relationship with the unknown.
I
And in order to do that, you have to encapsulate the unknown, which you can't do.
I wonder if relationship is a good entry into it because like you don't dissect in a mental sense your wife. You have a relationship with them as a another actor in the
I,
situation.
I do my best not to, but I'm not perfect at
Certainly. But
that.
you get the idea that, well, if you do fall into the trap of treating other people in a
Treating them as a
total,
known quantity.
yeah, and as in a totally rationalist manner, that's essentially
Yeah.
psychopathic.
Yeah, I understand everything about you and how you work, and therefore I can predict all of your behavior and I know you. You cease to treat them as an agent. Once you've encapsulated something in a reasoned and logical structure, oh shit, ideologies. Once you've encapsulated something in a reasoned and logic structure, it can no longer be a free agent because you've listed out in the mind, I have a set of principles that which you operate by,
Hang,
and
hold
that
up,
makes you an automaton in my worldview.
hold up.
Therefore, you cannot be a creative individual anymore.
What if, like you mentioned ideologies there. What if
Yeah,
you are the one encapsulated in a reasoned and thought out structure, then you become the automaton. It's not you treating others as automatons as
yeah.
such, but you become
No,
the
it's
automaton.
both.
Yeah.
It's both. Yeah. Reason is the predominant.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
You're encapsulated by the spirit of reason. Mm.
Oh,
The
it's
endless that
people.
goes into therapy and self knowledge as well. The endless attempt to try and encapsulate all of the parts of the unconscious into the known conscious structure based in reason takes away a large portion of your free will, as well as treating everyone else like that.
Yeah, and now there's um people
And when
talking
this,
about humans as
when
meat
this, yeah,
robots.
yeah, and when the system, so for an ideology, when the rational system itself can explain all things in creation, then you become the automaton. Because there's no situation in which you do not have a reason structure. It's an algorithm. Reason is an algorithm. There's no creativity in it.
Yeah, hang on a
There's
minute.
no, that
Yeah.
means, yeah, it's a part of us, like a tool in the toolkit, as you said before, but it is not all of us, and it is not the most important thing. We have AI systems building, and, they're rather terrifying, but there's a big limitation to them.
Hmm.
Genuine creativity is not a result of reasoned structures.
Yeah, they're gonna
It,
be. unbelievably good at replicating demonstrated behaviors or even brute forcing better solutions to specified problems, but they're not going to be able to. They will always be blindsided by something.
Yeah. They may think, but they may not be wise.
Yeah. And so something that came up in my head that it feels sort of like a no, it's a conundrum that points to me not understanding something, I think. But if pure rationalism and a purely reasoned out worldview in the form of an ideology makes you an automaton because your actions in response to circumstances are essentially predetermined.
Mm.
Like, we're all predictable to some degree, but at the same time, we respond to the circumstances of the moment rather than it being predetermined. Whereas you look at
We
the people
we
who
don't
are,
want it to be completely predetermined
mm,
because we leave a door open to change.
yeah. But the phrase that came up in my head was ignorance is freedom, and it feels like there's something that's not right in that, but there's a seed of something that is right, I think.
No one sees the truth of the world more than a child.
Oh, yes. Yes.
Fresh eyes see things. Oh, memory and vision. We literally see memories when we look at the world. Our brain is loading up pre-built structures and icons to represent everything. And it
Mm.
isn't until we look at something in detail long enough to break through that illusion that we see the real thing.
Oh, this relates to
So
something.
even
Yeah.
even our perception is based in algorithmic structures, devoiding us from the real world because we're basing all of our because no, that's not right. I can't make that leap. It feels like there's some connection between the inability to see the world as it is and seeing it simply as a structured representation of all that has come before and having structured representations of everything we've encountered being the primary method of engaging with the world and increasing that list of structure as the primary goal, reason in acquiring knowledge.
An example of this, I think, that I've met at work, we're trying to invent and bring to market modern advanced steam engines. I could enthuse about that another time, but
We all know.
yeah, something the boss had a conversation with me about. Now, we're all young, we're all under 30, so we're still sort of figuring out how to be professional engineers. And he was talking about how the others on the team had been going through the motions, which to to put it in the context of our current discussion, they were acting algorithmically. And I looked at it through the perspective of awareness that you watch the getting to the point where you
Awareness.
watch your algorithms and monitor them and intervene when they aren't correctly applicable instead of just continuing on automatically like an automaton
I,
until you reach a nonsensical conclusion.
I never made that connection before. The devil being the spirit of rationality, trying to usurp the unknown. We know that story. There was a line from a show I heard a long time ago, which is The devil's in his strongest when we're looking the other way. And that's a warning on that building of structures that you run in routine while you're not paying attention.
Hmm.
And those structures and the structure, there's something there. The structure of perception through memory, the structure of encapsulating ideas and and dissecting the unknown, and the structure of habits and actions that are automatized and not paid attention to. There's a warning that interlinks all three of those, and it's all connected with the idea of the devil.
Because the word Satan, if I recall correctly, translates as enemy, not as a particular individual.
Yeah, he's like a character who manipulates you into doing things that are harmful to you and others.
He's an archetype. He is the big bad.
Yeah. But he's also the highest angel. There's something about him that's on the team, like a guiding star, but in the wrong place. There's imagery coming to my mind about what's opposite to that automaton. I'm seeing, for the automaton side of things, the closing off of all awareness.
Hmm.
Everything's becoming checklists and flow charts and grey, day by day, mundane activity. There's a loss of wonder, sense of the unknown. Grey imagery, robotic. And then the other side I see a being immersed in light and colour, free free to walk the world.
Oh, it's
How
tyranny of order.
but how there has to be a way to integrate the the image of the image of a godly man, which is someone who lives their life day to day for some reason. They have things going on, they're looking after their wee corner of the world, but it's very flexible. There's
Hmm.
something freeing about it, and something about not worrying about tomorrow. But how do you integrate that with the discovery of work in the future? Care not for tomorrow. Is that really the message?
Hang on a minute.
There's something there. There's something there.
Care not for tomorrow doesn't imply
Oh
not
no.
doing the work
Uh,
of the day in preparation for tomorrow.
well, yes, it does actually. The point is to aim at the highest star that's worthy, and that in doing that, you will take care of tomorrow. If you're aiming at curing hunger, you're going to make sure that you're not going to be homeless tomorrow because then you're not helping anyone. That's what that story means. There's something different about that and going through the motions, that description. And I see a room full of guys at their desk doing their job because that's their job because they need the money to eat or whatever.
Kind of like
Oh,
surfing.
yeah. Gulag Archipelago is coming back up in my head.
For me, it's a book called Snowboarding the Himalayas.
What?
Was it the title? Uh, Surfing the
I,
Himalayas. Um, I had it arrive with a library I accidentally picked up. Long story. Well, sort of long, not very long. Anyway, a guy wanted to snowboard in the Himalayas and ended up meeting some uh, Tibetan monk lama who said, "Oh, I'm meant to teach you stuff," and proceeded to teach him a whole bunch of stuff. And then later he came back to the US and became a spiritual teacher. But one of the things that he talked about was a logical thinking where it's A, B, C, D. You work your way down the chain, and then you get blindsided by something because you haven't got to the end of the chain yet. Whereas he talked about this teacher talked about being in a state where rather than working his way along the chain, he was in the middle of a circle of all the options, all the of the whole situation, and then he could react to whatever happened immediately because he just reaches out from the center to wherever he needs to be in a metaphorical sense.
Presence and awareness is what I've heard people like that describe it before.
Mm.
They always come back to a sense of being present in the moment and forgetting the next moment. Not need or want for tomorrow or for me, but detaching from the personal and the concern. They talk about the you in your head isn't there. You're just observing. I remember people describing psychedelic experiences where there's like a monster in the vision looking at them and they're freaked out and then they realize like, what is it looking at? I'm not here. I'm just a construction. Or not even that. I'm something experiencing existence. And the something that I am is effectively existence itself because I'm just made up of the universe, same as everything else. And immediately it dissipates. Now, something you said before, and all of this lines up with something I got from the Gulag Archipelago, which is in that same verse we talked about before, which is in the pursuit of survival, you will lose your soul. If survival is your highest priority, you'll sacrifice everything for it. Your friends, your family, other people, other countries, the environment, whatever it is. There's something to that. Because the devil always threatens punishment. He very rarely gives it. All is needed is the threat, and people will bend.
That sounds very similar to the care about today and put your effort into today, don't worry about tomorrow perspective.
Yeah, be in the moment, care not for tomorrow. Does it seek the kingdom of God? There's a vision there that we're missing. What's the vision? We need a vision. That's what everyone keeps saying, and they're right. The Buddhists seem to have one. Maybe there's an integration that needs to happen there. There's visions painted out throughout our culture and throughout the Bible, but we've sort of lost them. becoming detached from our roots.
I'm just
There's a
getting
way to go back.
all forward to a new route, but I'm just getting a idea of, well, this is how I'm uh, planning as much as you ever can to approach a future relationship, is trying to act in each moment in a way that I can look back on and not regret, or not have any regrets about. And I can look back theoretically and see, oh, I was mistaken then. But as soon as in my awareness at that moment, not just going through the motions and forgetting to think, but as soon as it didn't feel right, or as soon as I realized a mistake, I stopped and reassessed and acted to the best of my ability in that moment. It's the goal I've been, or oh, it's not fully enunciated yet in my head, I think, but it's where I've been thinking about aiming of, and it applies to life too. It's like, okay, what's the best you can do at this moment? Not the best you could hope to get in 10 years or in the greatest you could do tomorrow. What in this moment, sitting in a chair or whatever, would make this moment worth it? And
Mm,
then be that. Be that, not just do that. But oh,
yeah, there's something there. Embodiment. I get that with our conversations, which is why I like doing them. I don't get it many other places in my life. I get it while I'm at the farm. I like that. When I was a child, I remembered I wanted to go to Tibet. It was always a thing when I was a kid. I'm not sure why. I wanted to go to the mountains and become a monk. That'd be a weird arc for my life.
I just feel like a, it's totally a likely past life thing for you.
Well, I don't believe anymore that the spirit of rationality is the thing to guide me forward in life. And I don't know how to cultivate the other spirit.
Because it's a tool to achieve a goal. It's not a compass to set the goal.
I don't agree with that.
Hmm.
It's a state of being, a guiding principle. When you, I can't imagine you could change your state of being or your guiding principle and not have that in goal. Not like some tool that you're instrumentally using to achieve your checklist item.
Hmm.
That feels very rationality, very spirit of rationality. Very manipulative too. I know what I want and I will use what tool that I want to get what I want. It puts the tool beneath the current mode of perspective. The tool, I even used it. That's the spirit of rationality talking. I am the center of this being, and every other thing is only a tool that I use for me. Because the most important part of being human is me, the rationality talking brain. I just don't believe that anymore. My being yearns for silence. I've known this for a long time. That's not my rational brain calling for it.
What do you mean by silence?
I don't know. Peace, space, connection
Because I've been thinking
to
of,
existence.
yeah, it feels. Oh, I'm not sure what it is that feels this, but like community. It's not like we talked about rationality and reason being a tool to achieve a goal, which I feel like it probably has a place somewhere, or I feel I want it to have a place somewhere, but I feel like the
Do
set
you want it? Who's you?
I'm comfortable with reason and rationality, I think would be more accurate from experience.
It's all we know, isn't it?
Yeah. And so I think it would be it's a don't throw the baby out with the bathwater situation, but we don't know where the line between the two is.
Yeah. My the vision that's conjured in my mind, the call on my soul is an idealized vision of a world without reason. But I know that what you're saying is has to be true. There must be some utility in it.
Hmm.
And yes, I get we're in this magical technological world. You had a question that popped up in my mind recently.
Hmm.
If AI gets off the ground and isn't an extinction level event, would we voluntarily return to the Stone Age or the, I don't know, something slightly up apart from that, agricultural age maybe? A simplicity, yeah, simple life where the meaning comes from growing your own food. Privation is not a problem. War and famine is not a problem. Medical technology is not a problem.
I think some would, but many wouldn't, for fear of the unknown.
Yeah, an unwillingness to accept. Oh, that's interesting.
Are you talking about a scenario where
We
the
reach ever upwards
mm,
as a species, but we're also fixed to the ground by our biology.
mm,
How can we hope to be stable while reaching ever upwards?
if we reach too high, we become unstable and fall back?
Feels that way.
Mm.
We go in these cycles as they've described. Perhaps there is an ideal state, one that doesn't cycle.
I don't know if it's possible to be out of the cyclical aspect. That sounds a lot like at least not in this kind of life. It sounds a
Isn't
lot
that
like,
what enlightenment is?
well, that's what I was thinking. It sounded very Buddhist. I'm trying to escape the cycle of reincarnation through reaching enlightenment. But the the other part that's been,
Something nice.
yeah, reciprocity and community, and that book on the theology of
Mm.
polytheism that I've been reading. It had a chapter recently talking about the relationship between oh, in the relationship in polytheist societies between people and the divine beings they interact with of many kinds, and it seemed to come down to reciprocity in the in a similar way to how would you put it, like the way that we would care for a much loved family pet who has enough understanding to try and return the favor in some way, like a dog who is a much loved part of the family. And
It's love, isn't it?
yeah,
We always come back to that. The answer is love.
yeah, which
What if the fundamentalists are right?
in which aspect?
They always say all you need to do is believe in Jesus and the world will be saved and you will be saved.
There are a lot of different meanings of that phrase, or a lot of different ways it could.
That's the problem.
Mm,
But they all seem to mean love.
mm.
It's all language of love. God loves everyone, Jesus loves you, all of this. And their whole church experience is based around that joy and love. They're not, I always complained about this. They're not lecturing, they're not trying to educate you. They're up there singing and having a good time and talking about the people in the community that need care or attention or help or events that come up. And then they're reading some little thing and then talking about how that relates to your life and how being a being of love and light makes your life better. And then they all go off and have tea and talk about their life and ask everyone how they're doing and offer help. And the spirit of rationality in myself rejected that because it saw myself superior to them because I am a being of rationality and they're not. An eye for an eye makes the world blind.
But it's very rational. You hurt me this much, I'll hurt you back precisely as much.
And the other cheek is very hard to accept because it's irrational.
Why would I accept more pain? Yeah. Yeah.
But it's like the trauma thing with children.
Which thing?
The cycle of abuse of children.
Ah,
If we just stopped doing it, then it wouldn't be a problem anymore. And yeah, that's very utopian, I get it, but there's truth there. If you can take it
hmm.
and not dish it out, but dish out only love,
What is love?
being of light, a beacon.
Still very
Hmm.
vague. Just trying to pin it down a little bit more because I
Pin it down. What with your reason?
ah, I don't know.
This is all
Yeah.
images. All of these words I'm saying, they're image representations. I'm getting flashes from my childhood interactions with my grandmother. That's a scary thought.
Because
So we disagreed on rationality-based problems, but it was always there. Okay, okay. This is the case, and those teachings are the teachings as they seem to be. The problem becomes Christianity itself. It's got such a bad rap. And people like myself were trying to politicize it by having it stand up for moral principles like it's a rules-based structure. Yes, put him on the altar, bow down and worship him so that everything he said may be null and void. The whole point, the whole point that he made was you don't need me anymore. You take these lessons, you learn them, you act them out. You don't need me anymore. It's on you.
I'm seeing it from a bit of a different perspective from you in this area, as you can imagine, and
Well, naturally.
yeah. Um, but I'm just seeing it as it's reciprocity still. Like as opposed to reason, it's you care for me and I care for you, widely applied. Like if you see
You need
someone
charity in that mix.
in the sense of you can be the first one to give, and you can give without expectation of return, yes.
Yeah, because otherwise you're only ever closing the circle.
Mm, definitely, yeah.
Yeah. I'm just saying, in order for it to work at scale, you have to have reciprocity and charity as the basis for ethical action.
Mm,
You can't just have one,
yeah.
otherwise,
I think
it'll
my,
infinitely shrink.
yeah, I think my subconscious, I'd been including reciprocity in, sorry, including generosity in reciprocity.
Mm.
But one definition of love that I heard was taking another as part of yourself is,
Yes. Oh, I like that. That's what it means to be married.
mm. But also
And I think, yeah,
if you care for others around you in the society and the world as a whole as a living community which is a part of you and which you are a part of. It's like if you care for your family but not the other family because your family is what you're part of and the other family is not what you're part of. But if you're both part of a community and have some shared link that you see, then you can care for other people, other species, so on. Yeah, it's like I take you as part of me. And then self love, something I've always struggled with a little bit. That's it's like take it gets a bit complicated because so many people treat themselves worse than those around them. And I can look back and see that in my own history. So saying love is taking others as part of yourself when you don't treat yourself very well, but then treat others better than yourself, is confusing.
perhaps that's always why there's an insistence in those kinds of communities, the, fundamentalist or whatever, about God or Jesus loving you in particular.
Mm,
There's always this like, yes, you must love. you need a spirit of love towards being itself, but that to know that that is reciprocated
Mm.
may be an antidote to
Yeah.
that ruthless criticism.
Because it's
And
like
nothing criticizes and cuts deeper than rationality.
it's not reciprocation in the sense of barter. Like, I'll give you this much because you give me that much. It's gift flowing in two directions.
Yeah, gifts of love.
Yeah. And the gifts flow and then are reciprocated in thanks, not in not in return.
Well, there's the answer. You know, a part of my brain really likes how simple that is. That I could in full knowledge, accept that and just close the search for meaning part of my brain.
That the
That's
right way
weird.
to act is in generous reciprocity. Give your gifts to the world in thanks for the gifts the world gives to you.
I think you probably are right, but I have some issue with that phrasing of it.
Yep.
It feels cold and devoid of
Hmm.
love and soul.
I don't think it came across that way in my head, so I think my phrasing's bad. It's
Well,
joyful
may-
companionship.
maybe. My grandmother always told me to be a beacon of light,
Hmm.
and I like that language.
I think it has different meanings for you than for me.
To be radiant. You want to be someone who radiates love to others. I used to do it a lot. And in those moments we discussed earlier where I was being piercing with my language, they were also simultaneously the moments where I was manifesting that love. And that's why I enjoyed them so much. That may be the proper
Oh,
use that may be the proper use of rationality.
it's your
The
gift, and
it's
you're
like
giving
it's
your gift.
it's like the Buddha.
Hmm.
Not the Buddha. The Buddha. Whatever. There's an image of a monk.
Hmm.
Okay, apologize for the language around this, but I don't know the definitions of how to define these characters. Um, whether it's Buddha or monk or whatever it is, there's an image of a being, a man, who is in a consistent flow state of love. And he's at peace with the world and he's in the moment and present forever. And people who are normal will go to him and ask him questions, for he is wise. And he will only ever ask them questions in return. Like someone who goes to a wise man and say, "How can I accomplish this?" or "How's this going to work out?" And the wise man turns to them and says, "Why do you want that?" I don't know if that's an image in the public consciousness or just something in me. I don't know if that's translating well.
Someone who asks the questions that you didn't know you were missing, that are sort of three steps back. and
It's breaking you out of the rationality box. The rational mind constructs a rational worldview so it understands the world. And the person who's engaging in that process, like those conversations I described in my past that I loved so much, is a person who's in the flow state of love, who asks questions that break someone out of the box they've constructed for themselves, introducing things that are outside their paradigm or asking questions that they don't have answers to, that force them out of their predefined limits and make them encounter what? Chaos doesn't feel right. It's got too negative a tinge to it.
truth.
The wonderful unknown.
Mm.
That's always what that instinct was.
I do wonder if a way of talking about how to live in love or radiate light, as you put it, would be freely giving your gift to the world, freely giving the gift you have to give. Like this is your thing that you're very good at, asking those piercing questions and finding the uh what is it? Showing people the more in the world around them or in their own
And I've been
thoughts.
trying to figure out how to sell it.
You're trying to charge for your gift.
That's what capitalist model teaches you.
Oh, it's very
Not that I
rational.
have a problem with capitalism, but yes, it is. I need to make money and I need to be successful in my life. So what I should do is use the best thing that I have and make a profit from it. But that demeans it, doesn't it?
There's also an argument that giving it away for free demeans it because people assume it has no value. So I think not seeking to make money from it.
If mm, yeah, yes and no. I think I agree with you, but I don't think that that works for my thing in particular
Mm,
because it's something that works in person.
yeah.
Like I can't really do it over the phone. It doesn't work. It's an in-person thing, and I do believe that there's a spiritual element to it. As I feel the spiritual parts of me, whatever that means, activate, and then there's a connection with the other person, and they feel the energy too when it happens.
Mm,
That's not something that can be scaled or sold remotely, and it shouldn't be sold either. Well, I don't know if it could be anyway, because it's born from genuine care, and it's hard to genuinely care about someone else when you're being paid to care about them. Hmm. It's interesting.
mm.
After all of this, it's opened the door back up to the whole psychology thing. But then that's the dissecting problem. But then it's not because of people like Jung. He is not a rational character. He was a visionary in this field.
I heard that one vision he had was of a great spider spinning in a web around the world, and I think there are a couple of other aspects to that as well that
Trapping it in its net threads.
it just sounded like the internet, encircling and entrapping the world.
It's hard for me not to think of it as rationality in this conversation.
Hmm. Yeah, that too, definitely. Just trying to generalize the idea of giving your gift to the world for myself and anyone else, that it's trying to. There's a feeling that comes with it of. It's a feeling that's very difficult to enunciate, which doesn't help much, but that, that you can look on it and think this is worth it, and then wonder why, but you feel it. The meaning. And you can reason it away, like, oh no, that's not productive time. I'm not um, making money or learning things or achieving goals. But if you listen for meaning and seek it, hmm,
Everything else will be provided to you.
oh, is this knock and the door
This,
shall open, just, or seek and ye shall find just came up in my head.
yeah, seek ye first the kingdom of God and all its righteousness, and the things that you need will be provided to you. Take no thought for the day. God damn it.
Just do what's,
This is really uncomfortable because I'm in this position. I enjoy what I do currently. I make good money doing it. I'm able to support my family. And if I was to chase this meaning and instinct, I would lose all of that. What defines success? What defines meaning? And I know you wanted to set things early, so maybe we could have this be a pre-set up for the next time. But what defines meaning as work starts to disappear due to the replacement of human beings with rational systems and chasing of these instincts? I'm no utopian and I'm definitely no communist, but I could sure as shit see that there would be value in the idea of I don't have to worry about success in terms of making enough money to feed my family. And I can worry more about following the meaning that's laid out in my life, where I could do the maximal amount of good for humanity. It'd be nice to have a world where there was enough to go around and systems that were able to get it around enough that I don't feel like I need to do better than the next guy to get by.
like you said, I wonder if this is a good place to leave it for next time.
Oh, I feel so uncertain now.
The only constant in life,
Strange.
change and uncertainty, and yeah.
The Serenity Prayer.
Hmm?
The Serenity Prayer.
Not familiar with it.
God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things that I can, and the wisdom to know the difference.
Hmm.
Good night, everybody.
Night.